Hello everybody, welcome to this playthrough for Master Division in the 3rd anniversary tournament. The video is sponsored by Golf Clash and Playdemic. And before we start, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Also visit golfclashshowme.com for more Golf Clash related content. Also, go to patreon.com/golfclashtommy to get the ultimate tournament text guides. Doesn't matter if you play Master, Rookie, Pro or Expert, get them there and it will definitely help your tournament game. This tournament is going to be tough, my friends, and if you're going to play Master, you're going to have to play with a special ball. You can play some of the courses with a power 3 ball, but I would say that you will have a struggle on most of them, because it's long holes, it's courses that do not give you anything for free, and you have to earn every single drop. And I'm trying to be more clear with my explanations with what to do with Apocalypse 5, 6 or then 7 and 8. For me personally, I believe that Apocalypse level 5 should be the lowest driver that you play Master with, and that's why I base my guides on that as well. Info box on the right hand side to give you the elevation for the drive, and then also if so for the second shot. Then underneath that you can see what ball/balls, if there is multiple suggestions, that I think would be the best. You don't have to use those suggested, but there's always a thought behind that. That's the same with the club or clubs, if there is 2 of them, or 3 of them for that matter, that I suggest what I think is going to be the key club, but you don't have to use them, but it's always a thought behind that as well. So in the end, thank you so much for watching this playthrough. Hit the thumbs up now before we start watching, and let's go with hole number 1. For hole number 1, we are going to play with a power 0 ball and side spin 3 ball, if we do have one. That's the thing. We're going to sometimes not have one, and what we do then? We use a power 0 ball to first set up our landing spot, which is a basic ball or a marlin ball for that matter. Then we're going to apply 2.8 bars backspin and 6 bars side spin to the right. Blue ring by the rough line, and here is the important part. Once you set up your shot, it is important that you get into absolute max distance with a power 0 ball. So if you do not have any win 5 power 0 balls and side spin 3 ball like the Oceania, season 11, and what do we have more, season 4, we do have Santa ball and stuff like that, then you set up with basic ball as I did on the video. You change to the feather ball, which is power 1 wind 5 side spin 3. If you do not have that either, then you go and you play with a kingmaker, but then you're going to have to play it slightly different in terms of setting it up, and that is going to be just before it turns plus yardage. 10% over adjustment, maximum distance is what you're going to play. Quarterback is the club. For hole number 2, we're going to play it very simple. You take the driver that gives you the most distance and topspin, and we're going to just smash it right down the middle. And I'm going to play with a ball that has some wind resistance, which in this case is going to be an Aurora ball. And that's going to be the same type of power as the turkey ball, same type of wind resistance as the turkey ball. And as you can see, I'm only using 2.25 or 2.5 bar side spin to the right, whatever you want to call it. And then I adjust maximum distance plus 10, max overpower, and wanted this ball to go as far as possible. The further it goes, obviously the better we're gonna have for the second shot. And if we do reach that far as we did there, which was 425, which is not often that happens, and have in mind I play with an Apocalypse level 8. And when we get into this distance, we're going to play with the B52 or whatever long iron you have that you feel comfortable with. But what happens if you do not reach this far? Then you're gonna play with a sniper, mostly in minimum distance. And to be able to prevent from adjusting down into the bunker, we would like to play with a wind 5 ball in some sort. Sure, you can play with a kingmaker and centurion and whatever ball you might have, but in the end, if you're going to stay away from having to push up for losing distance, dropping down into the sand, then you play with some sort of a turkey ball, Aurora ball, or any ball like that. And this is going to be a very good opportunity, in my opinion. Once we get that first drop, then we're gonna feel that we are very close to be dialed in. Unfortunately, I do not have a picture of the Aurora ball, otherwise that would be featured in the info box. 10% over adjustment for the drive, 10% over adjustment for the second shot as well. I know some people played 0, but I actually play with 10% over adjustment for the second shot as it suits my adjustment. For hole number 3, we're going to play with a power 5 ball, and in this scenario I'm going to use the season 18 ball. I do not have a picture of that one, so we're going to keep ourselves with the Berserker on the right hand side in the info box. So max top spin and as much side spin to the left possible, because we do want to get ourselves more to the left than we would be more to the right if we do go short with our drive. Have in mind here that those of you having an Apocalypse level 5 or level 6, I would actually suggest you to play with a Berserker ball here as to get more wind. But for those other players with Apocalypse level 7 or level 8, then you play with a stealth ball, with a season 18 ball if you have any, otherwise you go to a Berserker ball. You do want to gain as much distance as possible here, using an elevation that is 10%. So maximum distance with a 10% over adjustment is going to leave ourselves up with a Cataclysm rough bump here. And here you can play it differently. Have in mind that you should not be using this much topspin that I'm using, because in the end, if you hit the rough on the wrong place, you're going to get that ball to just shoot across the green, and then you're going to have a very, a pressure wedge, I would have to call it, for the second shot, for the third shot to get the eagle in. In the end, we're playing this shot to get a safe and nice eagle. And now in this scenario, I played max distance with no elevation, but I would like you to play with a 10% just to compensate for the wind push, the push from the wind that we are going to get, especially when the ball hits the ground. The ball comes in here, we are going to clip the rough, but as you can see here, we're coming in very, very hot here due to the fact that we're using too much topspin. In the end, it's not going to be a problem to get this wedge for an eagle, but we need to reduce the topspin and then actually stretch out our target, and then if so, push up rings in the end, if we're going to try to get this ball in for an albatross in the end. Tough hole though, and I would be very satisfied with an eagle. So for hole number 4, you're going to see a rough bump, but you're gonna see me making a mistake here, and you're going to notice why, I hope. 2.2 bars top spin, and we're going to play with 4.5 bars side spin to the right. And now we're going to look for half of the red ring in, like, outside on the fairway, and the top right half is going to be inside the bunker. And we're going to have the ball guideline at the hole at that point. And then we're going to push our rings. The reason we push is because that hill there is going to mess it up big time if we're going to try to pull. And then we're going to use an adjustment that is going to be maximum distance with no elevation whatsoever. And look here now, I do get my first bounce in the rough, the second bounce also in the rough. Why is that? The reason is that I'm underpowering my shot. So really take a look at that, and it's a very important lesson. Do not underpower or overpower this shot, and in any form. Be very, very clear with how you have your ball into the adjustment ring, because if you slightly overpower, you risk missing the rough completely. If you slightly underpower, you risk getting a double bounce in rough here. But I can tell you, if I hit perfect and do well, this is going to be extremely close, if not in, for an hole-in-one. For hole number 5, I'm going to show you a drive that is going to be very aggressive, and the risk that I take is that I'm going to get stuck into the rough by the top right fairway just before the water. And the thing that the reason I can do that is because I do have an Apocalypse level 8. So in the end, I'm not showing this shot to show off. I'm showing it as it is a possibility to get it there. Max top spin and as much side spin to the right possible. One ball of curl to the right, and then max overpower, and then we're going to have to be lucky. The ball is going to bounce, and now it's going to use the top spin to roll through the rough. Sometimes it's going to drop dead, sometimes it's going to roll through. The thing that we can have in mind though, before we take a look at the second shot, is that if you do have an Apocalypse level 5 or level 6, that is going to be very hard for you to manage to do that shot. But have in mind that I'm working with a layup option with a rough bump, because I play myself with an Apocalypse level 5 in Master now, so you will be able to see that on the streams that I'm playing, but I didn't get to have time to get that one dialed in enough until the playthrough was due. So, second shot, if we reach over to the fairway, we're going to play with a Thorn max backspin and leave the ball guideline a little bit right of the pin. Problem is though that in this adjustment I played max plus 10 because I wanted to see how much this ball is going to be affected by the wind. But I should have played this one more according to a max with no elevation whatsoever. This is a little tricky shot, but in the end, if you get there, definitely going to be a good opportunity. I do strongly believe though that in a long-term way, I think the rough bump here is going to be a viable option, and that is a shot that I will dig into further into the tournament. But here you have a more aggressive route on hole number 5. For hole number 6, we're going to see another very tough par 5 here, and it is very important to not drive too far, but it's also important to not go too short, because then it's going to be difficult in a different way. So, when we play with a power 4 ball, here I'm talking about the Cyber, Dead Ball, Athlete Ball, and stuff like that, and like power 4, Wind 3, or Wind 4 balls. Then we're going to play with 1.2 bars topspin. We're putting ourselves in max distance and using the blue ring as a reference by the rough line. If you do play with an Apocalypse level 5 or level 6, you're going to use instead half of the blue ring inside the rough instead of the complete full blue, which we only do with Apocalypse level 7 or level 8. Max side spin as well, as I forgot to say that with the drive, very important together with the top spin, and together with that we're playing with a 10% over adjustment. Second shot here, we're going to play a rough bump, but this is going to be a rough bump to be very careful with. And the reason I say that is because that I've been experiencing from bouncing in the rough there to have a little glitch on the green that put me into the rough on the back end of the green. I still think though that this is going to be the best option to get an albatross, but if you don't want to take the risk as it is to go with this rough bump, then you're using a Guardian or like an upgraded Cataclysm like I'm having here, and you in the end use just a normal backspin shot with a little bit of overpower and land it on green. I have yet to decide for what I'm going to do, but I am a little bit scared about that glitch on the green that can shoot you across the green over into the rough. But in the end, you know, that is the best and most likely the best way to get an albatross on this very, very tough par 5, no elevation for the second shot. For hole number 7, I'm unfortunately only going to show you an approach with a Wind 5 Power 0 ball. And here it's the Oceania. There is a multiply different type of balls with that type of stat, but in the end this is not a possible way to play with a Power 1 Wind 5 ball. Unfortunately that is the case in this scenario, but let's focus on the shot. 3.5 bar backspin is what I want to play here. The first thing that I do is that I'm looking for the top right of the red ring to be just by the rough, with the left side of the red ring to be approximately 1/3 inside the rough on the left. Then I'm just going to take my shot with a maximum distance with a 10% over adjustment, knowing that I can hit great left, I can hit great right, and I can hit perfect. With a perfect is going to be extremely close, and I do think with just a minor side spin tweak we're going to be there. So once again, unfortunately only with a Wind 5 Power 0 ball, but this is a very difficult hole to play on without a Wind 5 ball, as the tailwind will put you in between clubs with most of the Kingmaker and regular balls when you do have a wind that is above 9 miles per hour. So please have that in mind when you're playing this tournament. For hole number 8, I'm going to show you 2 approaches. First, we're going to start with, if you do have an Apocalypse level 7 or level 8, I want you to go for green. And the reason I want you to go for green is that you can actually reach over and give yourself either a rough iron shot, which is going to be very simple, you need to hit perfect, but it's going to be close, and the only thing you need to do is to hit perfect. Berserker ball, Wind 1 Power 5 is what we want to go with. Max top spin and as much side spin to the right possible. Half a ball of curl to the right. And the aiming point is that you stretch out your target into max using max topspin, and then you're going to go full blast and hope that you are lucky, because you need to be lucky here. You can drop absolutely dead in the rough, or you can just roll through like I did there. And in the end, that's still going to be a very nice way to play, especially if we get it there over where I got, and it's going to be an eagle. I do believe if you have an Apoc level 7 or level 8, this is going to be an absolute must eagle. When you play with an Apocalypse level 5, you are dependent on having a high wind and also a pretty decent wind angle when it comes to tailwind. And here I wanted to show my opponent's shot that do play with an Apocalypse level 5, and you're going to notice that he does reach over, but I would say that an Apocalypse level 5 and level 6 will have an incredible hard time to roll through the rough and will most likely stay in the rough. So what do we do then if we have an Apocalypse of 5 level 6? Like, I have one account that I have that scenario. Then we're gonna lay up. And here I'm using the Aurora Ball, as I do have a side spin too. And also wind resistance 5. This is an incredible good ball to play with. You can play Centurion, you can play Turkey Ball. The only thing with Turkey is that you'd go with a little bit more curl. 1.5 bar top spin, blue ring by the rough, and as this is a replay, it is a bit glitchy, so I am in absolute max distance with the rock. Maximum distance with a 10% over adjustment, and then we're gonna go with 1 ball of curl. And once again, have in mind, if you have less side spin and side spin too, you go with 1.5 ball of curl instead. Perfect ball, and the thing that I'm looking for is just a consistent way to lay up this ball to have a rough iron, a short iron for a rough bump. So I'm getting myself here into a yardage that is a 335 yard mark, and then we're going to play the rough bump with the thorn. And unfortunately, I do feel that in a long-term way, you as a player with an Apocalypse level 5 or level 6 in this tournament should be taking this route. It is obviously going to be a little bit, you know, disadvantage towards other players with an Apocalypse level 7, level 8 that could most likely dry green if they are lucky. But then it's our job to find a way, as we're doing here, where we drop it from distance. And we obviously require a perfect ball here with our thorn to get it in. I'm not playing this shot with any elevation, and I play this one slightly less than max distance. I'm removing a couple of decimals, and then I get it in for a nice eagle here with a lower level club. So I want to show you two ways, and please be careful if you take the risk going over the water. You can go over the water with an Apoc 5 and Apoc 6, as you saw there with our opponent, but in the end I cannot say here that you're gonna do that all the time, because sometimes you're gonna have a dead bounce, sometimes you're gonna do that, and you know what is worse than getting into the water in a tournament? Not much really, to be honest. But you know, here you have some alternatives from hole number 8. Let's see what we can do. For hole number 9, I'm going to follow the same structure as I've done in all the other divisions. That is that I'm gonna play it safe. I don't see any point in trying to cross the water to have a long iron max distance, or as best, or maybe a rough iron where I have to push it hard to get to the green. You know, I'm just gonna lay up, I'm gonna take the eagle, and I hope you do the same, because it is not logic to take the risk to bounce over the water with the risk that includes. So the thing that we're gonna do is that we're going to look for the bullseye, just cutting the rough and the fairway. And that's going to be our starting point. We are using 4.5 bar backspin with as much side spin to the right possible. Well, then we adjust for a maximum distance with a 10% over adjustment. We adjust that, and with an Apocalypse level 7 and level 8, we push up 5 rings. If we play with an Apocalypse level 5 or level 6, we push up 3 rings. Very important. Then, in the end, we play with half a ball of curl. And that's going to bring us to a very nice distance here. And we're going to play with the Cataclysm or the big dog for the second shot. We do need distance, that's the thing. So I'm using 3.5 bar top spin and as much side spin to the right possible. And here I'm just trying to get this one on green for a simple putt once again. If it drops, yeah sure, that's a super bonus, but not something that I do expect. Adjust for a maximum distance with no elevation. If you adjust out of overpower, you push it up to max. And then in the end, you might have to use a click of overpower, but just a tiny little bit. You can great left, great right. You will still be on the green for a safe eagle. Sure, for those of you that do have a bunch of power 5 balls, you can play with a power 5 ball from the start. Slightly different setup than I did set it up there, but it's going to be even simpler shot for the second shot. So lay up on hole number 9, don't take the risk crossing over the water. I do not see the reward being that great that we're gonna benefit from doing so. So in the end, everyone, thank you so much for watching this playthrough for Master. And in the end, if you do want to get the notes that I'm playing with, please subscribe to the Patreon channel. Link to Patreon in the description down below. And I do strongly believe that will give you an advantage over others in this very tough tournament. Video is sponsored by Golf Clash and Playdemic. Good luck in the 3rd anniversary tournament.